Thank you very much, Safi. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that statement. Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. The most challenging part for me in this gathering is always the protocol. But since the Honorable Minister has started, I will stand on existing protocol and move on. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. As he was speaking, I actually was thinking that maybe he got a look at my statement. But this is really evidence of the collaboration when we are all on the same page, thinking the same thoughts. So really, a commendation for the Gambians in this implementation process. I think one of the key things that, as he was saying, the model that we are being studied, countries, dignitaries coming to the Gambia, ministers from other countries coming to the Gambia to study what we have been doing so far, and civil society organizations as well coming to the Gambia, and Gambians being invited to other countries, Liberia, South Sudan, all those countries, to really find out what we have been doing so far. It is a testament to the commitment of the Gambia government, the Gambian people, our partners, and the victims, of course, coming together to work on this. The TRRC report is very recent, and I don't need to go through that again. We know 16 recommendations have been completely implemented, and we would like to highlight for us the promotion of the 5 female prisoners who were denied promotion because they wouldn't succumb to sexual favors. And unfortunately, also on that note, noting the passing away of David Colley, a perpetrator mentioned, or alleged perpetrator, excuse me, which also is a challenge to the justice process, and some of the key things that have been mentioned by the TRRC, NHRC report, which is the slow pace of the process as well. Justice delayed is justice denied, as we all know. In terms of the ongoing implementation of the 192 recommendations, really, it's very commendable, and I'm sure we will hear representation by Ms. Person later on of the great work that the Gambia government has been doing and the country has been doing at large, with the victims all working together to really push these things forward. Having the privilege to visit other jurisdictions that are going through transitional justice process, I really appreciate, makes me really appreciate the work that we have done in the Gambia for such a small country. Countries like Liberia, for them, what we are doing is the stuff dreams are made of, because of the long time that it has taken for them to get to where we are, and relatively for us in a short time, for that matter. In terms of the recommendations that we are yet to be implemented, really, we urge all of us together, the government in particular, to really push forward and really move on. It needs to be holistic. The progress needs to be holistic. We note some of the laws that have been put in place to set the foundation when it comes to strengthening the process and really making sure, like the Honorable Minister said, not just to fix the problem, but also to really transform and have a strong culture of respect for human rights, good governance and rule of law in this country. Really the backbone of development for any country. So really we must applaud ourselves for the Special Accountability Mechanisms Act, Special Prosecutions Act, Victim Reparations Act, that are currently being studied, even in universities. We had an engagement with the Geneva Academy earlier this year, and these are things that they're giving their students to study, to work on. So really, kudos on that. But we also note some of the laws that are still lagging behind, especially in the area of freedom of expression. We really need to work on that. As civil society organizations, human rights defenders, activists, or whatever you may call us, these things really is a challenge for us, because we are the group that is supposed to talk about the things that need to be talked about. If we are concerned about our safety or concerned about our security, really, it affects our work. So really, let's push on and get that going. Those laws and all the enabling environment that we need to make sure that we are thriving as a country and that the implementation will stand a chance for success. Now, what does all this mean when it comes to the daily lives of the victims who are the reason why we are here today? What does it mean for them? The slow pace of implementation is an understatement for them. We have the saying in all of that, "Kuhiv, so hustle, if one is hungry and wants to eat and you ask them to wait and wash their hands, it would be a challenge for them. For them, most of them suffering in pain, especially this time of the year, the cold season. I got a call yesterday from one of the victims trying to get to the doctor and saying, this is a difficult period for me, the cold season, because this is when the pain comes. So when pain is more intense for them. And a lot of them having difficulty accessing medication. One of the things that I would like to highlight, actually, that I think that we missed, and I'm saying we because we are part of the monitoring process with the National Human Rights Commission, actually, Mr. Commissioner Juve, is to bring to your attention that in the recommendation for the government to set up medical support for the victims, something is in place, has been in since February of this year. So I think we need to, it made me realize that maybe we need to incorporate AVLO as part of the steering committee members, Mr. Chair. The government has set up an interim measure for victims to receive medical support pending the operationalization, I got it, of the Reparations Commission, which we hope will be early next year. So victims have been receiving medical support since then, after a gap, unfortunately, from 2021 when the TRRC ended to February 2024. For people who have been tortured, people who are sick and not getting access to medication, that gap has exacerbated their suffering and their pain and brought on new ailments that they now have to take care of, unfortunately. So there is the medical board has been set up, 10 million was allocated. The commission, the board eventually, after some time, received 8 million and has started work in February. One of the things I would like to highlight in that is the process. Sometimes it seems like the process is more important than people. It should be the other way around. People should be more important than the process. It took some time for the monies to reach the medical board before we start. And because of the processes, we are still have the medical board not being able to give prescriptions, medications to the victims because they are not able to access the funds. Why? Because of processes. So really need to look at that. The people is what should drive the system, not the processes. Yes, we have to account. There should be transparency, but there are urgent situations that we should cater for. But thankfully, there's a consultant who's working on an SOP for the medical board. We hope that these bottlenecks will be identified and addressed when the Victims' Reparations Commissions come on board. So over 100 victims have received medical support. Some of them are not able to get medical access here, or treatment here would have to be referred abroad. But there are success stories. Madam Seka, that's not her real name, was not able to walk or talk when she came to the medical board for the first time. But after a few weeks of treatment, she came back on the review. She's able to walk now, unsupported or very little support, and is talking. So that is good news. We have received calls from the victims who are being treated of being able to manage their pain from the medication that they're being given now. So that is success stories. We also have had some of them, they're afraid to take their medication as it is prescribed because they don't know what will happen when they run out of medication. We are not getting refills. We have some of them not still being able to get their medication because the medication is not available at the hospital, and it's difficult to access the funds through the hospital. And we have some of them as well who are there waiting for tests, investigations to be diagnosed. Some of these investigations are not available in the country. And sometimes we run out of something as simple as test strips. So to our development partners and the Gambia government, this process cannot be divorced or separated from the development process. We need to be intentional about putting two together to be successful if we want to have proper reparations for the victims. It cannot be just business as usual. We need to be intentional about having these services available No, because no matter how much money we pour into the reparations, if the systems are not there to treat, to help support them, it is not going to work. We lost the victim because he couldn't come to Combo and he was admitted in Farafenye. He was referred to Banjo. The ambulance was on maintenance. He passed away a few days later because the ambulance could not get him to the treatment that he needs to be seen by the doctors in the country. The beginning of the school year is always difficult, and many families are distraught because we still don't have the support that has been promised for education for the students whose family members or breadwinners were killed, disappeared, or incapacitated. And the children, the recommendation of the TRRC, the children of the orphans of the HIV AIDS treatment program, as the recommendation is still being implemented. So we call on MOHAST, the Minister of Higher Education, the Minister of Basic Education, and the government really to provide. Yes, education is free from grade 1 to grade 12. But you know, the fare to go to school is not free, right? The uniform is not free. The textbooks are not adequate to cover. So these are things, and the feeding sometimes. I worked at a school for some time, and I had one child not come to school for a full term. And when she was asked, the mother was able to pay the school fees at that time. This was in 2015, when school fees were still for high school. And the reason why she couldn't come to school is because the mother could not afford the uniform. This is not necessarily the child of a victim, but these are challenges that are being faced by families who are skip school, their children skip schools frequently because they don't have fare to pay for them. So this really brings us the urgency of the need for the compensation and really support for the families, income generating support, livelihood support, to really make sure that these families that were already vulnerable before the dictatorship were even made more vulnerable by the violations that they suffered. So we really call on our developed partners for that. I would like to bring to light the issue of the Kermot Ali, the Ndigal sect in Kermot Ali, Gambian citizens who their children were denied education for years because they were sent into exile for practicing their religion in this country. The court has given a judgment that should allow them to go back to their village. It is still pending, honorable ministers. Minister of Justice, we call on you and your government to really work with us on making sure that these people get back to their communities where they rightfully belong and are able to get access to all the services that is their right. We really hope that the Peace Commission that has been recommended by the TRRC will also be put in place so that we can really make sure that we don't have anything brewing. We see what is happening in our neighboring countries in terms of security or insecurity in our neighborhoods, in our neighboring countries. We really need to make sure that the process takes into consideration all of that and does not leave anybody behind. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I really could go on and on, but there's so many things. There's so many good things, but there are really so many challenges. One of them that I almost forgot is really the issue of psychosocial support and mental health. We only have one clinical psychologist in the Gambia, and she's not Gambian. I'm not saying that to disqualify or anything, but the fact that she can go back to her country anytime and we'll be left with zero. These are people who are traumatized, and trauma really is not something that you can control. On Tuesday, I had met one of the victims who broke down when she saw me. Why? Because I reminded her of one of her colleagues that she was with in the prison. She was tortured. These are things that you don't have control. You don't know that, okay, when I see Sirra Ndow, I'm going to break down, I'm going to be traumatized. So these are people that need help. There are a lot of referrals for psychosocial support that have been made by the medical board, but we are still unable to get there. So really, we urge you to move on. Let's celebrate the successes, but let's also be mindful there are many, many more challenges out there. And for the everyday victims, they are trying very hard, but it is difficult for all of us. Thank you very much.